Understanding the text. Where did the narrator and his servant make a forcible entrance? The narrator and his servant Pedro made a forcible entrance in a desolate chateau which was located in the Apennines of central Italy. The narrator was seriously wounded. His valet didn't want the narrator to stay in an open air. He took the narrator inside chateau forcibly without anyone's permission. Which special picture did the narrator notice in the room? The narrator noticed an oval-shaped picture of a young girl in the room where the rays of candelabrum fell onto it. The narrator didn't notice this before. The young girl seemed just ripening into womanhood in that picture. The picture of that woman was so beautiful which attracted the narrator's attention. The oval picture of a young girl made him awake and too much curious. He kept on reading the history behind the portrait in his serious state. He was totally engrossed in finding its background through the book which he had found in the bed. Describe the portrait that narrator saw in the room. The portrait that the narrator saw in the room was quite artistic and lifelike. The narrator saw it when the rays of candelabrum fell on it. The portrait was oval-shaped with a beautiful picture of a young girl on it. Its frame was richly decorative. The young girl seemed just ripening into womanhood. The narrator seemed completely startled to find the lady's soldier and head with radiant hair so real. The brushwork of tints and portraits seemed so real in the portrait. The narrator felt a sudden impulse to notice that portrait. He closed his eyes once and opened. He could not believe his eyes to see such wonderful artistic creativity. What is the relationship between the portrait painter and its subject? The relationship between the portrait painter and its subject is husband and wife. The husband of the subject, lady, is a passionate painter who has painted his wife's portrait. He has painted his wife's portrait, taking many weeks. Reference to the context. What is the central theme of the story? Who is the woman depicted in the oval portrait? The central theme of the story, the oval portrait, is the relationship between life and art. The story has shown the destructive power of art and love. Art and love can lead anyone towards perfection, whereas they can bring destructive results in our life too. The painter of the story has become successful through his artistic works, but his wife has become the victim of his artistic tasks. She loves her husband extremely, that's why she does not reveal her pains. The story has shown bad results of excessive passion for something. The woman depicted in the oval portrait is the wife of a passionate painter who has painted this oval portrait. The Oval Portrait is a short horror story by Edgar Allan Poe involving the disturbing circumstances surrounding a portrait in a chateau. Elaborate. The setting inside and outside seem very terrible. The apartments inside chateau are so unmanaged and dirty. The apartment where the narrator and his valet stay have many things for decoration, but all of them are in decaying state. The lifelike portrait has been placed in one of the dark corners. The surrounding of the lifelike portrait is so disturbing due to the unmanaged condition everywhere. The arrival of the visitors has also added distance in the environment. The portrait seems quite valueless in that desolate environment of the chateau. The oval portrait suggests that the woman's beauty condemns to her death. Discuss. The oval portrait suggests that the woman's beauty condemns to her death. Here the wife of the painter is so beautiful who had just stepped into a womanhood. The painter wants to paint her portrait. He is a quite passionate painter who loves his artwork more than anything. He places his wife in the chair to pose for him. He is totally obsessed with his artistic work. The painter takes weeks to paint her portrait. During his task, he does not notice his wife's health condition, who becomes quite weak. By the time he finishes the portrait, he finds his wife lying dead on the chair. Discuss the story as a frame narrative, a story within a story. The frame narrative is a literary technique that reveals about the story within a story. It starts with a different plot and setting of the story, but later immerses out with the next story within it. Here the technique reveals us how a single story involves the next story within it. The story starts with the different information about the narrator and his valet with a different setting. The readers here move along with the story's flow at first, but later on the next story starts within it. And an amazing description of the oval portrait, its detail and background information. The readers reach up to the next level of the story. The technique of the frame narrative works, showing a single story and the next story within it. The story is told in a descriptive style with plenty of imagery and symbolism. Which images and symbols do we find in the story? Here in the story, we find various images and symbols. The writer has used images to present his horror elements beautifully here in the story, where there is immense use of darkness and light. The image of desolate chateau in the Apennines has created beginning thriller for the audiences. Similarly, the image of two visitors in the dark desolate setting has increased the reader's curiosity. Inside the chateau, the writer has used many images to present the setting of apartments, torrent, etc. Here we find various images as dark rooms, wall tapestries, trophies, the oval painting among the other paintings, the candelabrum, book, rays of light, etc. The historical background of the oval portrait also has presented the image of the painter and his wife in the high torrent of the chateau. The perfect use of images has the story with Gothic elements beautifully. Like images, the symbols also have played a vital role to understand the story in a deeper level. The oval portrait symbolizes mortality of love and immortality of art. This portrait has snatched the life of its main subject. Her love for her husband leads to death, whereas her husband's passion for artwork has snatched her life and made him immortal in his artwork. Next symbol which we find here is the time during artwork. The time during artwork symbolizes the painter's obsession, where he has forgotten everything around him and led his wife to death. What does expression "she was dead" mean? The expression "was dead" means the shocking moment of the death of the painter's wife in the chair. The painter was quite obsessed with his painting. He was totally engrossed in his task of painting. He forgot to inspect his wife's condition. He kept on painting his wife's portrait for weeks. When he turned his painting towards his wife being happy, he found his wife dead, posing in the chair. The artwork took the life of its main subject. Reference beyond the text. Do you think there is a life in art? I don't think there is life in art. Art is just a creation to display which has meanings related to different things. But in a literal sense, artists create life in art. They try to find out life within the art. As a thing of art, nothing could more admirable than painting itself. Explain. This statement is absolutely right about painting. Painting is really a very admirable form of art. The painters really work hard to create quality paintings with meanings. The painting itself speaks in its literal manner. Painting provides us with facts related to life. Here in the story, the oval portrait is one of the finest examples which has startled the narrator. He feels completely puzzled to see that painting. He wants to know about its painter. A more intense look at the painting reveals the illusion. Have you noticed any such painting? Yes, I have noticed such painting. The painting becomes more meaningful when it is watched by the viewer who is passionate about paintings. But for those viewers who don't have an idea about paintings, find illusion all the time. In my case, I watched a typical painting for a long time, but I didn't get meanings about it. I tried a lot to grasp its meaning, but vain. Later on, I got its meaning from my friend. If you want the note of this lesson, please refer to the link in the description or go to hari570.com.np. Thank you. All the best.